The Barrett M82A1 weighs 32 pounds unloaded. Its .50 caliber rounds can pierce concrete walls and disable vehicles from over a mile away. Most people need extensive training just to handle its devastating recoil. But when armed terrorists stormed the Mountain Ridge Federal Building, taking 43 hostages including a classroom of visiting school children, the weapon found its way into the hands of someone they never saw coming. A quiet night shift janitor named Tiffany Alvarez, who hadn't touched a rifle in 10 years, thought what happened next would shatter every assumption about who she really was. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The fluorescent lights of Mountain Ridge Federal Building cast harsh shadows across the marble floors as Tiffany Alvarez pushed her cleaning cart down the empty corridors. At 3:47 a.m., the building belonged to the custodial staff, security guards, and the occasional workaholic attorney burning midnight oil in the upper floors. The steady squeak of her cart's wheels had become the soundtrack to 10 years of deliberate anonymity. At 34, Tiffany had perfected the art of being overlooked. Her dark hair stayed pulled back in a practical ponytail, hidden beneath a faded blue maintenance cap that had seen better years. The oversized janitor's uniform hung loose on her compact frame, designed more for function than form. Behind wire-rimmed safety glasses, her brown eyes moved with a sharpness that most people missed, constantly scanning, assessing, cataloging details that others ignored entirely. The other night shift workers knew her as the quiet Mexican woman who cleaned the federal offices on floors 12 through 18. She spoke softly, kept to herself, and never complained about the worst assignments. When the regular day shift supervisor needed someone to handle the biohazard cleanup in the CDC offices, Tiffany volunteered without hesitation. When the monthly deep clean of the FBI field office required weekend overtime, she simply nodded and adjusted her schedule. What they didn't know was that Tiffany Alvarez had once been Staff Sergeant Tiffany Rodriguez, the most decorated female sniper in the history of the 3rd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. Her record of confirmed eliminations in Afghanistan remained classified, but the number was high enough to earn her the unofficial title of Angel of Kandahar among the Special Operations community. 10 years ago, she could place a bullet through a playing card at 800 meters and 40-mile-per-hour crosswinds. She could read wind patterns like a meteorologist, calculate bullet drop compensation in her head, and remain motionless in a sniper hide for 18 hours without compromising her position. Her spotter, Corporal Jake Martinez, used to joke that she could thread a needle from a football field away. The memories lived in a locked compartment of her mind, surfacing only during the darkest hours when sleep refused to come. Images of desert compounds and mountain passes, the weight of responsibility for missions where failure meant American lives lost. The satisfaction of eliminating high-value targets who would never again plan attacks on innocent civilians. The brotherhood of elite soldiers who trusted her absolutely with their lives. All of it ended on an October morning in 2013, during Operation Scorpion's Nest. The mission had been routine by Ranger standards. Eliminate a Taliban commander coordinating eyed networks throughout Helmand Province. Intelligence indicated the target would be attending a meeting in a remote compound, surrounded by minimal security. Tiffany's team had established overwatch positions on a ridgeline 1,200 meters from the objective, with clear fields of fire and multiple escape routes planned. Everything went wrong in the span of 30 seconds. The intelligence was compromised. Instead of a small security detail, the compound housed over 60 armed militants. As Tiffany lined up her shot on the primary target, her spotter Jake noticed movement in their rear position. A Taliban patrol had somehow flanked their position, moving through terrain that should have been impossible to navigate silently. The choice came down to mathematics and morality. Take the shot and eliminate the high-value target, but alert the entire compound to their presence and guarantee a firefight her small team couldn't win. Or abort the mission, preserve American lives, but allow a terrorist coordinator to continue planning attacks that would kill dozens of innocent people. Tiffany made the decision in 3 heartbeats. She pulled the trigger. The .300 Winchester Magnum round traveled 1,200 meters in 1.4 seconds, striking the Taliban commander's center mass as he stepped out of the meeting building. The subsequent firefight lasted 47 minutes, with Tiffany providing precision overwatch fire while her team fought their way to the extraction point. Her shots eliminated 7 hostiles and disabled 2 technical vehicles, but Jake Martinez took shrapnel from an RPG that detonated 6 feet from their position. He died in the helicopter, holding her hand and joking weakly about missing his sister's wedding. His last words were asking her to tell his family that he was proud to serve alongside the best soldier he'd ever known. The mission was classified as a tactical success. The Taliban commander was eliminated, disrupting IED networks that had been responsible for over 40 coalition casualties. Tiffany received her 2nd Bronze Star with V device for valor, along with a Purple Heart for minor shrapnel wounds. But success felt hollow when measured against the cost of Jake's life. 3 months later, during what should have been a routine patrol, everything unraveled completely. Captain Derek Morrison, her company commander, had been feeding intelligence to Taliban forces in exchange for heroin smuggling routes. For 6 months, he'd been providing enemy forces with patrol schedules, convoy routes, and operational details. The attack that killed Jake hadn't been the result of compromised intelligence. It had been a deliberate setup, designed to eliminate a sniper team that was becoming too effective at disrupting local drug trafficking. When Tiffany discovered Morrison's betrayal through intercepted communications, she faced the same impossible choice that had defined her entire military career. Report the evidence through proper channels and risk Morrison's connections burying the investigation, or take direct action to protect her remaining teammates. She chose the evidence. The investigation that followed was swift and brutal. Morrison's network of corrupt officers, stretching from company level to battalion headquarters, moved quickly to protect themselves. Evidence disappeared. Witnesses recanted their statements. Electronic communications were mysteriously corrupted or deleted entirely. When the smoke cleared, Staff Sergeant Tiffany Rodriguez found herself facing court-martial proceedings on charges of insubordination, conduct unbecoming, and most devastating of all, suspected collaboration with enemy forces. The very evidence she'd uncovered was twisted into proof of her own guilt, painted as the desperate actions of a soldier trying to cover her tracks after being exposed. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Morrison testified that he'd suspected Rodriguez of selling intelligence and had been conducting his own investigation when she attempted to frame him. Character witnesses spoke about her recent behavioral changes, her growing isolation from the unit, her obsession with revenge after losing her spotter. Expert testimony suggested that her exceptional marksmanship skills made her valuable to enemy forces seeking inside information. Only Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Bennett, her battalion commander, believed her innocence. But Bennett's transfer to European Command came days before she could testify on Tiffany's behalf. Without her support, the case collapsed under the weight of manufactured evidence and coordinated lies. The court-martial stripped her of rank, forfeited all pay and allowances, and resulted in a dishonorable discharge. Staff Sergeant Tiffany Rodriguez ceased to exist, replaced by a civilian with a criminal record that made employment nearly impossible. She'd legally changed her name to Tiffany Alvarez, using her grandmother's maiden name to distance herself from the scandal. The hair dye, colored contacts, and 20-pound weight loss completed the transformation. Within 6 months of her discharge, she disappeared into the anonymous world of night shift custodial work, where background checks were minimal and Questions were rarely asked, asterisk for 10 years. She'd existed in the shadows of federal buildings, hospitals, and office complexes. Close enough to touch the world she'd once protected, forever barred from serving it again. Every night, she cleaned the offices of FBI agents, D investigators, and ATF specialists, the very people who would arrest her if they discovered her. True identity. The Mountain Ridge Federal Building had become her refuge over the past 3 years. The work was steady, the pay adequate for her modest needs, and the overnight shifts meant minimal contact with the daytime federal employees, who might recognize something familiar in her movements or bearing. Her supervisor, Maria Santos, treated her with the respect accorded to a reliable employee, never suspecting that the quiet woman mopping floors had once been featured on the cover of Armed Forces Journal. As Tiffany worked her way through the FBI field office on the 14th floor, she moved with unconscious precision that spoke of military training. Her cleaning routine followed tactical principles, systematic coverage of all areas, constant awareness of exits and entrances, mental mapping of the space for future reference. Old habits died hard, even when disguised as janitorial efficiency. The office housed 15 special agents, working everything from domestic terrorism to organized crime. Their desks contained case files, surveillance photos, and intelligence reports that Tiffany carefully avoided reading. Professional curiosity warred with self-preservation. Any sign that she was accessing classified information would destroy the anonymity she'd worked so hard to maintain, but tonight felt different. As she emptied trash cans and sanitized surfaces, fragments of conversation from earlier meetings lingered in the air. References to increased security measures, mentions of specific threat assessments, the kind of operational awareness that preceded significant law enforcement actions. Agent Robert Chung's desk held surveillance photographs of several Middle Eastern men, faces that triggered recognition in Tiffany's trained memory. She'd seen similar intelligence photos during her time in Afghanistan. The methodical documentation of terrorist networks and operational planning that preceded major attacks, despite every instinct screaming at her to ignore the intelligence. Tiffany found herself cataloging details with the systematic thoroughness of her former profession. Vehicle license plates visible in surveillance photos. Timestamps indicating pattern of life analysis. Geographic markers suggesting operational areas within the greater Denver metropolitan region. The FBI was tracking something significant. And the evidence suggested the threat was both imminent and local. As she finished her rounds and prepared for the long elevator ride to the parking garage, Tiffany had no idea that her decade of carefully maintained invisibility was about to be shattered. In the most public way possible. The skills she'd worked so hard to bury would soon be the only thing standing between 43 innocent hostages and a terrorist attack that would make headlines around the world. The ghost in custodial coveralls was about to discover that some training never truly fades, it just waits for the moment when courage demands its return. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The first sign of trouble came at 6:23 a.m., just as Tiffany was finishing her shift and preparing to head home. The building's emergency communication system crackled to life with a tone she recognized from her military days. The sharp, urgent blast that preceded lockdown protocols. All personnel, this is security control. We have reports of suspicious activity in the vicinity of the building. As a precautionary measure, all exits are temporarily restricted. Please remain in your current locations until further notice. Tiffany paused in the hallway between the 15th and 16th floors, her custodial cart forgotten as tactical awareness flooded back like muscle memory. The announcement was wrong, not in content, but in delivery. Security Chief Marcus Williams had worked the building for 12 years, and his voice carried the steady authority of a former Marine sergeant. This voice belonged to someone else entirely. Through the reinforced windows facing the street, she could see black SUVs positioned at strategic intervals around the building perimeter. Not the random parking of federal agents arriving for work, but the deliberate placement of vehicles designed to control access points and establish fields of fire. Professional positioning that spoke of military or advanced tactical training. Her phone buzzed with a text from Maria Santos, emergency. At home. Need you to cover the early morning cleaning on floors 8 to 10. Sorry for short notice. The message felt wrong on multiple levels. Maria never texted during shift changes, preferring face-to-face conversations about schedule modifications. More importantly, the request violated building security protocols that required all personnel changes to be cleared through the Federal Security Office. No supervisor would risk their clearance status for routine cleaning adjustments. Tiffany deleted the message and activated her phone's emergency contact function, scrolling to the number she'd hoped never to use. The line connected after 2 rings. Denver FBI Field Office, Agent Chun speaking. Agent Chun, this is Tiffany Alvarez from the custodial staff. I'm currently in the Mountain Ridge Federal Building, and I think you need to know that something's wrong here. A pause. Ma'am, I'm not sure I understand. What kind of problem are you reporting? The security announcement came from someone who isn't Security Chief Williams. There are vehicles positioned outside that don't match normal federal agent arrival patterns, and my supervisor just sent me a text requesting protocol violations that she would never actually make. Another pause, longer this time. Ms. Alvarez, where exactly are you in the building right now? 10th floor, east stairwell. I can see the street from here, and the vehicle positioning is tactical, not administrative. Listen to me very carefully. I need you to stay exactly where you are and keep this line open. Do not use elevators, do not attempt to leave the building, and do not make any noise that might draw attention to your location. The professional urgency in Chun's voice confirmed what Tiffany's instincts had already told her. The Mountain Ridge Federal Building was under siege, and she was trapped inside with whatever hostile force had taken control of the security systems. Agent Chun, how many people are typically in the building at this time of morning? Skeleton crew. Maybe 15 to 20 federal employees across all floors, plus security staff and custodial personnel. Why? Before Tiffany could answer, the sound of automatic weapons fire echoed from the lower floors, followed by shouting in a language she recognized from her deployment days. Arabic commands delivered with the crisp authority of trained militants. Agent Chun, you need to contact the hostage rescue team immediately. We have armed hostiles in the building, and they're speaking Arabic. This isn't a random attack. How do you know Arabic, Ms. Alvarez? The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. 10 years of carefully maintained cover, destroyed by a moment of tactical honesty. But with innocent lives at stake, operational security became a luxury she couldn't afford. That's not important right now. What matters is that I can hear at least 4 different voices. They're moving with coordinated precision, and they've already secured the lower floors. This is a planned operation, not a spontaneous incident. The gunfire had stopped, replaced by the more ominous sound of doors being systematically opened and closed. Room-by-room searches, conducted with the methodical efficiency of professionals who knew exactly what they were looking for. Through the stairwell window, Tiffany could see additional vehicles arriving, news vans, police units, and the distinctive black SUVs of federal response teams. A perimeter was forming, but the hostiles had already achieved their primary objective, seizing control of a federal building with multiple high-value targets inside. Ms. Alvarez, I need you to stay on the line and provide updates on anything you observe. We're coordinating with local law enforcement and federal response teams, but it's going to take time to establish communication with the hostiles and determine their demands. Agent Chun, there's something else you need to know. This building houses satellite offices for multiple federal agencies, FBI, DF, and others. If the hostiles research their target properly, they know they have access to classified information and high-value personnel. How do you know about our agency distribution? That information isn't public. Another operational security violation, but the tactical situation demanded accurate intelligence sharing. I clean these offices every night. I see the case files, the organizational charts, the security protocols. I know this building better than most of the people who work here. The sound of voices grew closer, accompanied by the systematic checking of doors on the 14th floor. They were working their way up, searching for additional personnel or specific targets. Tiffany estimated she had perhaps 10 minutes before they reached her position. Agent Chun, I can hear them approaching the 14th floor. Their search pattern suggests they're looking for something specific, not just securing hostages. Do you have any high-value cases or personnel that might be targets for international terrorist organizations? A long pause. When Chun responded, his voice carried the weight of classified information he shouldn't be sharing with a custodial worker. Asterisk. We've been tracking a terrorist cell with connections to international arms trafficking. The case files are stored in our secure server room on the 10th floor, but we also have physical evidence and documents in the field office. If they're after that intelligence, then this isn't a hostage situation, Tiffany finished. It's a targeted intelligence gathering operation. The hostages are just leverage to buy them time to access your files. The tactical implications were clear and terrifying. Professional terrorists with specific intelligence objectives would be prepared for extended operations, equipped with technical expertise to breach federal security systems, and willing to eliminate witnesses to protect their mission. The voices on the 14th floor grew more distinct, speaking in rapid Arabic about search procedures and timing constraints. Tiffany's linguistic training allowed her to understand fragments of the conversation, references to time limits, specific room numbers, and most chillingly, instructions about eliminating unnecessary personnel once their primary objectives were achieved. Agent Chun, they're not planning to negotiate. I can understand enough of their conversation to know they intend to kill the hostages. Once they've secured whatever intelligence they're after, Ms. Alvarez, we need to get you out of there. Can you make it to an exit without being detected? Tiffany peered through the stairwell window at the street below. Federal response teams were establishing command posts and deploying tactical units, but the siege mentality of law enforcement would focus on containment and negotiation. Standard hostage rescue protocols that assumed the hostiles wanted to survive their operation. Negative. They have the exits covered, and even if I could get out, it wouldn't help the people trapped inside. How many federal employees are actually in the building right now? 15 confirmed, plus 6 security personnel. Most are concentrated on floors 8 through 12, where the early shift starts first. 21 innocent people, plus whatever custodial and maintenance staff had been caught in the initial assault. All of them depending on federal response teams who didn't yet understand the true nature of the threat they were facing. The sound of breaking glass from the floor below indicated the hostiles were using force to access secured areas. Time was running out, and traditional law enforcement responses would take hours to organize and execute. Hours that the hostages didn't have. Tiffany closed her eyes and made a decision that would shatter 10 years of carefully constructed anonymity. When she opened them again, Staff Sergeant Tiffany Rodriguez was back in operational mode. Agent Chun, I need you to listen very carefully. I'm not just a custodial worker. I have tactical training that might be relevant to this situation, but I need accurate intelligence about the building's security systems and the current positions of federal personnel. What kind of tactical training? The kind that might be the difference between 21 people going home to their families tonight or becoming casualties of a terrorist operation. Are you willing to trust me with that information? The silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds while Chun weighed operational security against tactical necessity. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the resignation of someone making an impossible choice. "Tell me what you need to know." Agent Chun's voice carried the tension of someone being forced to make decisions far above his clearance level. "Ms. Alvarez, before I share any operational information, I need to understand what kind of tactical training you're talking about. This is a federal building under terrorist attack. I can't just..." "Agent Chun." Tiffany's voice cut through his bureaucratic hesitation with the authority she'd once used to command rangers in combat zones. "In approximately 8 minutes, those hostiles will reach the 15th floor where I'm currently positioned. In 12 minutes, they'll have accessed your secure server room and begun downloading classified intelligence that took your agents months to gather. In 20 minutes, they'll start executing hostages to demonstrate their commitment to whatever demands they're about to make." She paused, listening to the systematic destruction of doors on the floor below. "I can prevent all of that, but only if you stop thinking like a federal agent and start thinking like someone who wants those people to survive the next hour." The silence stretched for 10 seconds that felt like hours. When Chun spoke again, his voice had shifted into the clipped tones of operational briefing. "Building security is managed through a central control room on the 3rd floor. 6 security cameras per floor, motion sensors in all stairwells, electronic locks on all secured areas. The hostiles gained access through the loading dock entrance, which suggests inside knowledge of our delivery schedules." "How many hostiles have you confirmed?" Visual count shows 8 individuals, armed with automatic weapons and wearing tactical gear. They moved like military professionals, not amateur terrorists. 8 hostiles with professional training, positioned throughout a 18-story federal building with multiple objectives and approximately 21 hostages. The tactical mathematics were stark. Even a full FBI hostage rescue team would need hours to plan and execute a successful assault. And these terrorists had demonstrated they weren't planning to wait for negotiations. "Agent Chun, I need you to access the building's architectural plans and identify any non-standard access routes. Service tunnels, maintenance shafts, utility corridors, anything that doesn't appear on standard floor plans." "How do you know about non-standard access routes?" "Because I've been cleaning this building for 3 years, and I pay attention to things that most people ignore." Tiffany moved carefully down the stairwell, keeping her footsteps silent while monitoring the hostile voices below. "There's a maintenance tunnel that runs from the sub-basement to the 17th floor, parallel to the main elevator shaft. It's used for cable runs and HVAC access, but it's wide enough for human movement." She could hear Chun typing rapidly, presumably accessing building schematics through federal databases. "I'm showing that tunnel system on the plans. It connects to utility rooms on floors 3, 7, 11, and 15. That's my route to the security control room. Once I reach the 3rd floor, I can access the camera systems and provide you with real-time intelligence on hostile positions and hostage locations. Ms. Alvarez, even if you reach the control room, you're talking about conducting surveillance against 8 armed terrorists. What exactly do you plan to do with that information?" The question forced Tiffany to confront the reality of what she was contemplating. 10 years ago, she would have called for backup, coordinated with other team members, waited for proper support before engaging multiple hostiles. But 10 years ago, she'd had the authority and resources of the United States Army behind her. Now, she had a maintenance cart, a cell phone, and skills that she'd sworn never to use again. "I plan to do whatever is necessary to keep those people alive until your hostage rescue team can mount a proper assault. That could be hours, Ms. Alvarez. Even our tactical teams need time to analyze the situation, plan entry routes, and coordinate with local law enforcement. Then I guess I'd better get started." Tiffany ended the call and began the systematic process of transforming from custodial worker to operational asset. The maintenance cart contained supplies that could be repurposed for tactical applications, industrial cleaning chemicals that could create diversions, cable ties that could serve as restraints, basic tools that could be improvised into weapons. Importantly, her 3 years of cleaning the building had provided intimate knowledge of its layout, security systems, and operational patterns. She knew which doors were frequently left unlocked, which areas had camera coverage gaps, and which federal employees were likely to be in the building during early morning hours. The maintenance tunnel access was located in a utility room on the 15th floor, concealed behind a panel that most people assumed was decorative. Tiffany had discovered it during a deep cleaning assignment, noting its potential as an emergency route, but never imagining she'd need it for tactical purposes. The tunnel itself was cramped and poorly lit, designed for cable installation rather than human movement. But it ran the full height of the building, connecting to utility rooms that provided access to every floor. More importantly, it was invisible to the building's security camera network, creating a route that even sophisticated surveillance couldn't detect. As she crawled through the tunnel toward the 3rd floor, Tiffany's mind automatically shifted into mission planning mode. 8 hostiles suggested a cell structure with specific role assignments, probably 2 or 3 individuals focused on securing hostages, 2 assigned to intelligence gathering, and the remainder providing security and communications. Professional terrorists would maintain radio contact and operate according to predetermined timelines. The building's layout worked both for and against tactical operations. Multiple stairwells and elevator shafts provided numerous access routes, but they also created too many positions for a small force to defend effectively. The hostiles would be forced to concentrate their personnel around key objectives, leaving gaps in their perimeter that could be exploited by someone with sufficient tactical knowledge. The utility room on the 3rd floor was exactly where Chun's architectural plans indicated, hidden behind a maintenance door that required the access code Tiffany had memorized during her first week of employment. The security control room lay 20 meters down a corridor that, according to her mental map of camera positions, had only 2 surveillance units. But as she prepared to leave the utility room, the sound of approaching footsteps made her freeze. 2 individuals moving with the measured pace of professionals conducting security sweeps. Their conversation was in Arabic, discussing assignment rotations and timing constraints. Through the crack beneath the utility room door, Tiffany could see tactical boots and the lower portions of military-style equipment harnesses. These weren't amateur terrorists inspired by radical ideology. They were professional soldiers, equipped with advanced gear and operating according to detailed mission parameters. One of them paused directly outside the utility room door, speaking into a radio in accented English. "Control, this is Team 2. 3rd floor sweep is complete. No additional personnel located. Recommend moving to Phase 2 operations." The response crackled through his radio with crystal clarity. "Confirmed, Team 2. Intelligence team has accessed the server room. Estimate 30 minutes to complete data download. Security team report hostage count at 19 individuals, secured in conference room on the 10th floor. 19 hostages, not 21. Either Chun's count had been wrong, or 2 federal employees had been eliminated during the initial assault. The cold mathematics of terrorist operations, where human lives were reduced to tactical variables in someone else's mission plan. The radio conversation continued with updates that provided crucial intelligence about the overall operation. The hostiles had successfully accessed the FBI's secure server room, confirming Chun's suspicion that this was a targeted intelligence gathering mission. They had consolidated most hostages in a single location, simplifying their security requirements, while creating a concentrated target for rescue operations. Most importantly, They were operating according to a strict timeline. 30 minutes to complete data theft, followed by what the radio traffic referred to as sanitization procedures, a euphemism that sent ice through Tiffany's veins. As the footsteps moved away from the utility room, Tiffany understood that the tactical situation had fundamentally changed. This wasn't a hostage crisis that would be resolved through negotiation and patient law enforcement procedures. It was a military operation with predetermined objectives and a timeline that ended with the elimination of witnesses. The security control room was now more than just an intelligence-gathering position. It was the key to preventing a massacre. She waited 3 minutes after the footsteps disappeared before opening the utility room door and moving toward the corridor that would either save 19 innocent lives or expose her to professional killers who would show no mercy to a former American soldier. The hallway stretched before her like a pathway between her hidden past and an uncertain future. At the far end, the security control room held the technology that could provide tactical intelligence to federal response teams. But reaching it would require crossing 20 meters of open corridor, covered by surveillance cameras that were now being monitored by people who would kill her without hesitation. Tiffany checked her phone one final time, noting 17 missed calls from Agent Chun. The federal response was probably in full coordination mode, establishing command posts and negotiating communication protocols while the clock ticked down toward mass murder. She turned off the phone, took a deep breath, and stepped into the corridor that would transform her from a custodial worker hiding from her past into the only person who could prevent a terrorist victory measured in innocent blood. The security control room door stood slightly ajar, spilling pale blue light from multiple monitor screens into the darkened corridor. Tiffany approached with the silent movement patterns drilled into her during Ranger training, each step calculated to minimize noise while maintaining readiness for immediate action. The door's position suggested either careless abandonment or deliberate trap. Professional operators didn't leave critical positions unsecured without reason. She paused at the doorframe, listening for sounds of occupation while visually scanning the room's interior. 6 large monitors displayed feeds from throughout the building, cycling through camera positions that revealed the true scope of the terrorist operation. On the 10th floor, 19 individuals sat bound and gagged in the main conference room, while 2 armed guards maintained watch from the hallway. The 12th floor showed 3 hostiles systematically searching FBI case files, photographing documents with professional efficiency. Most disturbing was the feed from the building's sub-basement, where 2 operatives were installing what appeared to be explosive devices near the main structural supports. Not improvised bombs designed for maximum casualties, but precisely placed charges calculated to bring down specific sections of the building. They were planning to eliminate all evidence of their operation, along with everyone inside. The control room's workstation showed signs of recent use. Arabic text on one monitor screen, indicating the terrorists had accessed the security system and modified camera angles to eliminate blind spots they might have exploited during entry. But they had made a crucial error in their operational security. The system was still logged into the primary administrator account, giving Tiffany access to every security protocol in the building. She settled into the operator's chair and began the systematic process of gathering tactical intelligence that could save 19 lives. The camera feeds revealed the terrorists' positioning with clinical precision. 2 guards with the hostages, 3 conducting intelligence gathering, 2 installing explosives, and 1 maintaining communications from a command post on the 8th floor. Their leader was immediately identifiable through his central position and the deference shown by other team members. Approximately 40 years old, military-bearing, equipped with advanced communication gear that suggested coordination with external command authority. He spoke periodically into a satellite phone, reporting progress in Arabic to someone who was clearly managing multiple aspects of a larger operation. Tiffany activated the building's emergency communication system and began broadcasting on the frequency Agent Chun had used earlier. Denver FBI Field Office, this is Tiffany Alvarez. I have accessed the building's security control room and am providing real-time tactical intelligence. The response came immediately, tinged with relief and desperation. Ms. Alvarez, thank God. We've been trying to reach you for 30 minutes. What's your status? Secure in the control room with full access to building surveillance. I have visual. Confirmation of 8 hostiles, 19 hostages secured on the 10th floor, and explosive devices being installed in the sub-basement. This is not a hostage situation. They're planning to eliminate all evidence and witnesses. Can you provide specific positions for tactical team planning? Tiffany began the methodical process of translating visual intelligence into actionable, tactical data. Years of combat experience had taught her how to compress complex battlefield information into precise, usable reports that assault teams could implement under pressure. Hostage location: 10th floor, main conference room, northeast. Corner: 2 guards in the hallway, positioned to cover both elevator banks and the primary stairwell. Guards are equipped with automatic weapons and body armor, operating with professional military discipline. She switched camera feeds, noting details that would be crucial for rescue operations. Intelligence team, 12th floor, FBI Field Office. 3 individuals conducting systematic document photography and electronic data theft. They have physical access to classified case files and are operating according to predetermined target lists. The explosive team in the sub-basement required immediate attention. Demolition team, sub-basement, installing charges on primary structural supports. Based on placement patterns, they're planning controlled demolition of floors 8 through 12, exactly where the hostages and intelligence targets are located. Agent Chun's voice carried the weight of someone coordinating multiple federal agencies. Our tactical teams are establishing positions around the building perimeter, but they need time to plan entry routes and coordinate with explosive ordnance disposal. How much time do we have? Tiffany monitored the terrorist leader's communications, translating fragments of Arabic conversation into timeline estimates. Based on their radio traffic, they're planning to complete operations and initiate building demolition in 18 minutes. Your tactical teams don't have time for extended planning. The mathematics were brutal and unforgiving. Even the FBI's elite hostage rescue team would need at least 40 minutes to plan and execute a successful assault on a fortified position with multiple hostiles and explosive devices. 18 minutes was enough time for limited engagement, but not the kind of methodical operation that guaranteed hostage survival. Ms. Alvarez, we need options. Can you identify any vulnerabilities in their defensive positions? Tiffany studied the camera feeds with the analytical mindset that had made her effective in Afghanistan. Professional terrorists operated according to established patterns, but those same patterns created predictable weaknesses that could be exploited by someone with sufficient tactical knowledge. Their positioning assumes external assault through primary access points, main entrances, stairwells, elevator shafts. They haven't secured the maintenance tunnel system because it doesn't appear on standard building plans. A small team could use those tunnels to access floors above or below their positions. Do you have tactical experience with this type of operation? The question hung in the air like a challenge to 10 years of carefully maintained deception. Tiffany stared at the monitor showing 19 innocent people whose lives depended on decisions she would make in the next few minutes. Federal employees with families, dreams, and futures that would be eliminated to protect a terrorist operation. Agent Chun, I need you to patch me through to your tactical team leader. I have information that might be relevant to planning their assault. What kind of information? The kind that might be the difference between a rescue operation and a recovery operation. The tactical team frequency crackled to life with the controlled chaos of law enforcement professionals coordinating under extreme pressure. Multiple Voices providing updates on positioning, equipment status, and coordination with other federal agencies. The professional competence was reassuring, but Tiffany recognized the limitations of their approach. Tactical Team Leader. This is Agent Chun. I'm patching through a civilian who has access to the building's security systems and tactical intelligence. This is Commander Sarah Martinez, FBI Hostage Rescue Team. Civilian source. Please identify yourself and provide your current status. The voice belonged to someone accustomed to command authority, but Tiffany heard the underlying tension of a professional facing an impossible tactical situation. Commander, this is Tiffany Alvarez. I'm currently in the building's security control room with visual access to all hostile positions and real-time monitoring of their operations. Ms. Alvarez, we appreciate any intelligence you can provide, but I need you to understand that this is an active federal law enforcement operation. We cannot coordinate tactical decisions with civilian personnel. Commander Martinez, in 16 minutes, those explosives in the sub-basement are going to eliminate your rescue options, along with 19 innocent lives. I can provide intelligence that might prevent that outcome, but only if you're willing to listen to tactical recommendations from someone who understands how professional military operations function. A long pause, filled with the sound of radio traffic and coordinated movement. When Martinez spoke again, her voice carried the resignation of someone making decisions that would define careers and save lives. Go ahead, Ms. Alvarez. What do you recommend? Tiffany took a deep breath and crossed the final bridge between her hidden civilian identity and the tactical expertise she'd spent 10 years trying to forget. Commander, these aren't amateur terrorists. They're professional military operators, conducting a precision intelligence gathering mission with predetermined timelines and escape routes. Standard hostage rescue protocols won't work because they're not planning to negotiate or survive capture. She switched between camera feeds, building a comprehensive tactical picture that would guide the federal response. Their defensive positioning assumes assault through primary access points, but they've left secondary routes unsecured. The maintenance tunnel system provides access to floors above and below their positions, creating opportunities for simultaneous, multi-point engagement. What kind of military experience do you have, Ms. Alvarez? The question demanded honesty that would shatter her carefully constructed anonymity, but 19 lives hung in the balance of her answer. The kind that taught me how to plan and execute operations against professional military targets under impossible odds, Commander. Are you willing to trust that experience to save those people? Martinez's response would determine whether Tiffany remained a hidden custodial worker providing limited intelligence, or became an active participant in a tactical operation that would either save innocent lives or expose her true identity to federal law enforcement agencies that still considered her a disgraced veteran with a criminal record. The clock showed 14 minutes remaining until scheduled building demolition, and the tactical decisions made in the next 60 seconds would determine whether the Mountain Ridge Federal Building became the site of a successful rescue operation or the largest terrorist attack on American soil since September 11th. Commander. Martinez's voice cut through the radio static with the authority of someone who had spent 15 years making life or death decisions under impossible circumstances. Ms. Alvarez, I'm looking at building schematics that show no maintenance tunnel access to the floors where hostiles are positioned. How exactly do you propose we exploit these routes? Tiffany's fingers moved across the security workstation, pulling up architectural overlays that revealed the building's hidden infrastructure. Commander, the tunnels connect to utility rooms that don't appear on standard floor plans. I can guide your team through access points that will put them within 50 meters of both the hostage location and the explosive devices, even if your route assessment is accurate. We're talking about simultaneous operations on multiple floors with a timeline that doesn't allow for proper coordination. The risk of casualties is, Commander, Tiffany's voice carried the steel authority that had once commanded Rangers in combat zones. In 12 minutes, those explosives are going to eliminate the risk assessment along with everyone in this building. We don't have time for proper coordination. We have time for one chance to save 19 people who are counting on us to make impossible decisions. The silence stretched for 10 seconds that felt like hours. Martinez was calculating tactical probabilities against political consequences, weighing the lives of innocent hostages against the careers that would be destroyed if the operation failed catastrophically. Ms. Alvarez, can you provide real-time intelligence updates during tactical operations? Affirmative. I have visual access to all hostile positions and can coordinate tactical movement through the security camera network. And you're confident about the maintenance tunnel routes? Tiffany stared at the monitor showing 19 bound hostages, their faces reflecting terror and hope in equal measure. Commander, I've been cleaning this building for 3 years. I know every access point, every blind spot, every security vulnerability. But more importantly, I know how professional military operations function, and I know what it takes to disrupt them. Martinez made the decision that would either save innocent lives or end multiple federal careers. All right, Ms. Alvarez, we're going to trust your tactical assessment. But I need you to understand that if this operation fails, the responsibility falls on everyone involved. Understood, Commander. But if we don't try, the responsibility for 19 deaths falls on us anyway. The tactical coordination that followed demonstrated the precision that made FBI hostage rescue teams among the most effective law enforcement units in the world. Within 4 minutes, 2 separate teams were positioned at tunnel access points, equipped with night vision gear and suppressed weapons that would allow silent elimination of hostile guards. Tiffany became the central coordination point for an operation that violated every standard protocol for federal tactical engagement. Through the security camera network, she provided real-time updates on hostile positions while guiding assault teams through building infrastructure that had never been designed for tactical movement. Team Alpha, you have 1 hostile at the north end of the 10th floor corridor, positioned to cover the main elevator bank. He's equipped with automatic weapon and body armor, facing away from the utility room that will be your access point. Asterisk, Team Bravo. The sub-basement demolition team is concentrated around the primary structural supports on the building's east side. They have approximately 8 minutes remaining to complete explosive installation. The coordination required split-second timing and absolute precision. Team Alpha would need to eliminate the hostage guards and secure 19 civilians while Team Bravo simultaneously neutralized the demolition team and defused explosive devices that could bring down half the building. Commander Martinez's voice carried the tension of someone managing multiple tactical variables simultaneously. Ms. Alvarez, what about the intelligence team on the 12th floor? 3 hostiles with access to classified materials represents a significant security breach, even if we successfully rescue the hostages. Tiffany studied the camera feeds showing the intelligence gathering operation. 3 operatives photographing FBI case files with systematic efficiency, downloading classified data that represented months of federal investigation into terrorist networks. Their position was isolated from the primary rescue targets, but their mission success would compromise ongoing national security operations. Commander, the intelligence team is isolated and focused on their download operations. They're not monitoring security feeds or maintaining regular communication with other team elements. A 3rd tactical unit could neutralize them without alerting the rest of the operation. We don't have a 3rd tactical unit, Ms. Alvarez. Every available federal agent is committed to the primary rescue operation. The tactical mathematics were stark and unforgiving. 3 separate objectives, 2 tactical teams, and 10 minutes to execute operations that would normally require hours of planning and coordination. Success would require improvisation that pushed beyond the boundaries of standard federal law enforcement protocols. Commander, what about civilian assets? Someone with tactical training who could handle the intelligence team while your professional units focus on the hostages and explosives. Absolutely not. We cannot coordinate tactical operations with civilian personnel, regardless of their claimed experience. Tiffany watched the intelligence team's systematic destruction of months of federal investigation, understanding that their success would enable future terrorist attacks that could kill hundreds of innocent people. The classified files they were photographing contained details about sleeper cells, funding networks, and planned operations that represented the collective intelligence gathering efforts of multiple federal agencies. Commander Martinez, the intelligence team has access to Operation Sandstorm files, the multi-agency investigation into domestic terrorist cells with international connections. If they successfully extract that information, you're looking at compromised assets and blown investigations that took years to develop. The silence that followed carried the weight of national security implications that extended far beyond the immediate hostage crisis. Operation Sandstorm represented one of the most significant counterterrorism investigations in recent history, involving undercover agents, foreign intelligence cooperation, and surveillance networks that had taken 3 years to establish. How? Do you know about Operation Sandstorm, Ms. Alvarez? That information is classified at levels that require federal security clearance. Another operational security violation that pushed Tiffany closer to exposure, but the tactical situation demanded complete honesty about intelligence capabilities. Commander, I clean the FBI field office every night. I see the case files, the organizational charts, the operational summaries. I don't read classified documents, but I understand enough to recognize critical national security information when I see it. You're telling me that a custodial worker has had unsupervised access to classified federal investigations for 3 years? I'm telling you that the people responsible for building security clearances never suspected that someone with advanced tactical training might be hiding in plain sight as maintenance personnel. The admission hung in the air like a detonated explosive, scattering fragments of assumption and protocol that had governed federal security procedures for decades. A former military operator with access to classified information, providing tactical coordination for federal law enforcement operations, while maintaining a civilian identity that violated multiple security protocols. Martinez processed the implications with the rapid analysis that had made her effective in command positions. Ms. Alvarez, after this operation concludes, you and I are going to have a very detailed conversation about your background and security clearance status. But right now, I need to know if you can provide tactical intelligence that will prevent the compromise of Operation Sandstorm. Tiffany studied the camera feeds showing Team Alpha's approach to the hostage location and Team Bravo's positioning near the sub-basement explosives. Both units were executing their approaches with textbook precision, but the intelligence team remained unsecured and continuing their systematic data theft. Commander, I can provide intelligence and tactical coordination, but neutralizing 3 armed hostiles requires direct action that your teams are not positioned to provide. What are you suggesting? The question forced Tiffany to confront the reality that had been building throughout the crisis. Providing intelligence and tactical coordination kept her in the shadows, maintaining the anonymity she'd protected for 10 years. But stopping the intelligence theft would require direct action that would expose her true capabilities to federal law enforcement agencies that still considered her a disgraced veteran with a criminal record. I'm suggesting that someone needs to handle the intelligence team, and I'm the only person in position to do it. Ms. Alvarez, you're a civilian custodial worker. I cannot authorize civilian participation in tactical law enforcement operations. Commander, in 7 minutes, those explosives are going to make the distinction between civilian and law enforcement irrelevant. The question is whether we're going to let professional terrorists steal classified intelligence that will enable future attacks on American citizens. The tactical radio crackled with updates from Team Alpha, reporting successful approach to the hostage location. Team Bravo confirmed visual contact with the demolition team and requested authorization to begin neutralization sequence. The primary rescue operation was proceeding according to plan, but the intelligence theft continued unabated. Martinez made a decision that would either validate her command authority or end her federal career. Ms. Alvarez, if you have tactical capabilities that could prevent the compromise of classified intelligence, I'm authorizing you to take whatever action you deem necessary. But understand that this authorization is informal and off the record. Tiffany stood up from the security workstation, her movements already shifting into the fluid efficiency of someone preparing for combat operations. Understood, Commander. Maintain tactical coordination with Teams Alpha and Bravo. I'll handle the intelligence team and provide updates through the security camera network. Ms. Alvarez, what exactly are your tactical capabilities? The question demanded an answer that would shatter 10 years of carefully maintained deception, but 19 innocent lives and national security secrets hung in the balance of her response. The kind that taught me how to eliminate multiple hostiles in confined spaces without compromising ongoing operations, Commander. The kind that might be the only thing standing between those terrorists and the successful intelligence-gathering mission. As Tiffany prepared to leave the security control room and engage 3 armed terrorists in direct combat, she understood that her decade of hiding was about to end in the most public way possible. Staff Sergeant Tiffany Rodriguez was about to emerge from the shadows, and there would be no going back to the safety of anonymity. The maintenance corridor leading to the 12th floor stretched before Tiffany like a pathway between her carefully hidden past and an uncertain future that would expose everything she'd worked to conceal. Her movements had already shifted into the fluid precision of someone whose muscle memory retained 10 years of suppressed training, each step calculated for silence while maintaining readiness for immediate violence. The improvised weapons she'd gathered from the custodial supplies were crude, but effective in the hands of someone who understood how to apply lethal force with minimal resources. An industrial-grade utility knife with a 6-inch blade, cable ties that could serve as silent restraints, and a pressurized cleaning chemical canister that could create temporary blindness in confined spaces. But the real weapon was her intimate knowledge of the building's layout and the tactical mistakes that professional terrorists made when operating in unfamiliar environments. 3 years of cleaning the FBI field office had provided detailed understanding of room configurations, sight lines, and acoustic properties that would determine the success or failure of her improvised assault. The utility room access to the 12th floor was located 30 meters from the FBI field office, requiring movement through a corridor covered by security cameras that the intelligence team would be monitoring. But Tiffany understood something about their operational focus that would provide the tactical advantage she needed. Professional intelligence gathering required absolute concentration on complex technical procedures. The operatives photographing classified documents would be focused on systematic coverage of case files, ensuring complete capture of information while maintaining image quality that would be usable for analysis. Their attention would be devoted to the immediate task, creating tunnel vision that experienced soldiers learn to exploit. She paused at the utility room door, listening to the sound of movement and conversation from the FBI office. Arabic voices discussing file organization and digital storage procedures, spoken with the casual confidence of professionals who believed their security perimeter was absolute. Through the partially open door, Tiffany could observe the intelligence team's positioning and equipment configuration. 3 operatives, positioned at different workstations throughout the office, using high-resolution cameras and portable scanning devices to photograph classified materials. Their weapons were slung across their backs, indicating confidence that immediate threat was minimal. The tactical assessment was straightforward but unforgiving. 3 armed professionals in a confined space, with multiple escape routes and communication. Equipment that could alert other team members. Success would require eliminating all 3 operatives simultaneously, preventing radio communication that could compromise the primary rescue operations. Tiffany activated her phone one final time, texting Agent Chun with information that would either save her life or provide crucial intelligence if the operation failed catastrophically. 12th floor, FBI office. 3 hostiles conducting intelligence theft, attempting neutralization. If unsuccessful, inform tactical teams that classified Operation Sandstorm files had been compromised. TA. She turned off the phone and dropped it in the utility room, understanding that the next few minutes would either restore her military identity or end her life in anonymous obscurity. The approach required movement through the corridor at a time when the intelligence team would be most focused on their technical procedures. Tiffany waited for the sound of concentrated activity, rapid photographing that indicated systematic coverage of multiple documents before beginning her advance. The corridor felt endless despite being only 30 meters long. Each step carried the weight of 10 years of hidden identity and the lives of 19 innocent hostages whose rescue depended on preventing the compromise of classified intelligence. The industrial carpet absorbed sound, but her heightened awareness detected every subtle noise that might alert professional operators to approaching threat. The FBI office door stood partially open, spilling fluorescent light and the sound of systematic document processing. Through the gap, Tiffany could observe the first operative's position, approximately 25 years old, military bearing, focused on photographing case files related to domestic terrorist financing networks. His positioning provided the tactical advantage she needed. Seated with his back to the door, weapons slung and secured, communication equipment within reach but not immediately accessible. The classic vulnerability of professionals who had become comfortable with their operational security. Tiffany moved through the doorway with the silent efficiency that had made her effective in Afghanistan, covering the distance to the first operative in 3 swift steps. The utility knife found the gap between his body armor and helmet, severing the carotid artery with surgical precision that prevented any sound beyond a soft exhale. The second operative, positioned at a workstation 15 feet away, looked up from his photography just as Tiffany's improvised chemical weapon filled his field of vision. The pressurized canister released industrial strength, cleaning solution that caused immediate chemical burns and temporary blindness, dropping him to his knees while his hands clawed at burning eyes. But the third operative had heard enough to trigger professional survival instincts. His weapon was already in motion, automatic rifle swinging toward Tiffany's position as his finger found the trigger and his voice began shouting warnings in Arabic. The tactical mathematics were stark. 15 feet of distance, professional operator with automatic weapon, and reaction time measured in milliseconds. Success required movement that defied human limitations and precision that had been drilled into her through years of training she'd tried to forget. Tiffany's response combined muscle memory with desperate improvisation. She launched herself forward in a diving roll that carried her beneath the rifle's muzzle while her remaining cable ties deployed like a bola, wrapping around the operative's ankles and sending him crashing into the workstation behind him. Impact scattered classified documents and photography equipment across the office floor. But more importantly, it positioned the terrorist within reach of someone who had been trained to kill with minimal resources. The utility knife found its target with the same surgical precision that had eliminated the first operative, ending the threat before he could transmit warnings to other team members. The entire engagement had lasted less than 20 seconds, but the silence that followed felt like hours. 3 professional terrorists eliminated without alerting other team members. Classified intelligence secured, and tactical communications preserved for the ongoing rescue operations. Tiffany activated the office computer and began the systematic destruction of photographed files, deleting digital images and destroying storage devices that contained classified information. The technical procedures required several minutes, but she worked with the methodical efficiency of someone who understood the intelligence value of what she was protecting. Her phone buzzed with an incoming message from Commander Martinez. Team Alpha reports successful hostage extraction. 19 civilians secured, no casualties. Team Bravo neutralizing demolition devices. Status on intelligence team? The text represented more than tactical coordination. It was validation that her decision to abandon 10 years of anonymity had prevented both mass casualties and a devastating national security breach. But it also marked the point of no return. From her carefully hidden civilian identity, she photographed the 3 eliminated operatives and their equipment, providing visual confirmation that would be crucial for post-operation intelligence analysis. The images would also serve as evidence of her direct participation in federal law enforcement operations, destroying any possibility of return into her previous life as an anonymous custodial worker. Intelligence team neutralized. Classified. Materials secured. Operation Sandstorm files protected. All hostiles eliminated without alerting primary terrorist cell, TA. The response came immediately. Outstanding work, Ms. Alvarez. All tactical objectives achieved. Federal tactical teams securing building. Request you remain in current position for debriefing and coordination with post-operation procedures. Tiffany surveyed the FBI office that had become an impromptu battlefield, noting details that would require explanation to federal investigators. 3 dead terrorists surrounded by classified documents, sophisticated photography equipment destroyed, and clear evidence of hand-to-hand combat conducted by someone with advanced military training. The forensic analysis would reveal combat techniques that were taught only to elite special operations personnel. The precision of the knife wounds, the tactical positioning, the systematic approach to eliminating multiple threats, all indicators that the person responsible possessed training far beyond what any civilian custodial worker should have. More importantly, the successful neutralization of the intelligence team had prevented a catastrophic breach of national security. The Operation Sandstorm files contained details about ongoing investigations, undercover assets, and planned counterterrorism operations that would have been compromised for years if they had fallen into hostile hands. As Tiffany waited for federal tactical teams to secure the building, she understood that her decade of hiding was over. The next few hours would bring investigations, background checks, and questions that would expose every detail of her military service and subsequent exile. Staff Sergeant Tiffany Rodriguez would emerge from the shadows, along with all the secrets she'd worked to protect, but for the first time in 10 years, she felt the satisfaction that came from using her skills to protect innocent lives rather than hiding them to preserve her own safety. The ghost in custodial coveralls had completed her final mission, and the woman who emerged would have to face whatever consequences came with choosing duty over anonymity. The sound of tactical boots in the corridor indicated that federal agents were approaching to secure the scene and begin the complex process of understanding how a custodial worker had single-handedly eliminated a professional terrorist. Intelligence gathering operation. Tiffany placed her improvised weapons on the desk and raised her hands, preparing for the moment when her hidden identity would be exposed to the very federal agencies that still considered her a disgraced veteran with a criminal record. The tactical boots stopped outside the FBI office door, followed by the distinctive sound of weapons being readied and professional voices coordinating entry procedures. Federal agents operating with the methodical precision that followed successful hostage rescue operations. but approaching an unknown situation that didn't fit standard post-operation protocols. Federal agents. Identify yourself and state your condition. Tiffany remained motionless with her hands raised, surrounded by evidence that would reshape everything federal investigators thought they knew about the Mountain Ridge building attack. 3 dead terrorists, destroyed intelligence gathering equipment, and classified documents scattered across an office that had become an impromptu battlefield. Tiffany Alvarez, civilian custodial worker. I am unarmed and require immediate debriefing with Commander Martinez regarding the neutralization of hostile intelligence gathering operations. The silence that followed carried the weight of professionals trying to process information that contradicted every assumption about civilian capabilities and federal security protocols. A custodial worker claiming responsibility for eliminating 3 armed terrorists represented a scenario that existed outside standard FBI tactical procedures. Ms. Alvarez were coming in. Keep your hands visible and do not move from your current position. 4 federal agents entered the office with weapons drawn, their movements reflecting the controlled aggression of professionals securing an uncertain tactical situation. Their body language shifted from combat readiness to confused assessment. As they observed the scene that Tiffany's engagement had created, Agent Rachel Stone, the tactical team's intelligence specialist, was the first to speak after surveying the office. Ma'am, can you explain how 3 armed terrorists were eliminated by a civilian with no apparent weapons or tactical equipment? The question demanded answers that would expose 10 years of carefully hidden military training, but the tactical situation required complete honesty with federal investigators who needed to understand what they were dealing with. Agent Stone, the terrorists were focused on intelligence gathering operations and had relaxed their immediate security protocols. I used improvised weapons and tactics that took advantage of their operational tunnel vision. What kind of improvised weapons? Tiffany gestured toward the utility knife and cable ties she'd placed on the desk. Industrial cleaning supplies, maintenance tools, and techniques that maximized effectiveness while minimizing noise that could alert other hostile team members. Agent Marcus Chen entered the office, his expression reflecting recognition and growing comprehension. He'd been coordinating with Tiffany throughout the crisis, but seeing her in the aftermath of a successful tactical engagement was forcing him to reevaluate everything he thought he knew about the quiet custodial worker. Ms. Alvarez, during our radio communications, you demonstrated knowledge of tactical procedures, Arabic language skills, and building security systems that seem inconsistent with custodial employment. Can you explain the source of these capabilities? The moment of truth had arrived with the inevitability of tactical mathematics. 21 hostages had been saved, classified intelligence had been protected, and a terrorist operation had been completely neutralized. But success had come at the cost of exposing everything Tiffany had worked to hide for 10 years. Agent Chun, I have military training that predates my civilian employment. The knowledge and skills I use today were acquired during prior service. That ended approximately 10 years ago. Commander Martinez's voice echoed through the office as she entered with a tablet displaying preliminary intelligence about the terrorist operation. Ms. Alvarez, we've been analyzing the deceased operatives and their equipment. These weren't amateur terrorists. They were professional military contractors with advanced training and sophisticated intelligence gathering capabilities. She paused, studying Tiffany with the analytical awareness of someone who had spent 15 years evaluating tactical personnel. Eliminating 3 operatives of this caliber requires training that isn't available through civilian programs. What branch of military service provided your tactical education? The question cut through. 10 years of deception like a blade through fabric, exposing the core identity that Tiffany had worked so hard to conceal. But surrounded by federal agents who had witnessed the results of her intervention, denial would be both pointless and insulting to their professional intelligence. United States Army, Ranger Regiment. Special operations training focused on precision marksmanship and direct action missions. The admission sent ripples of recognition through the assembled federal agents. Army Rangers represented some of the most elite tactical personnel in the American military, with training that explained everything they had witnessed during the crisis. Agent Stone consulted her tablet, accessing military databases that would provide verification of Tiffany's service record. "Ma'am, what name and service dates should we use for background verification?" Staff Sergeant Tiffany Rodriguez, 3rd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. Service dates 2009 through 2013. The typing that followed carried the sound of career histories being accessed and federal assumptions being systematically demolished. Within minutes, Agent Stone's expression shifted from professional skepticism to something approaching awe. "Ma'am, according to military records, Staff Sergeant Tiffany Rodriguez was awarded 2 Bronze Stars with V device, a Purple Heart, and the Distinguished Service Cross. Her performance evaluations indicate she was one of the most effective snipers in Ranger Regiment history." Commander Martinez studied the tablet display with growing comprehension. It also shows she was court-martialed in 2013 on charges of collaboration with enemy forces and conduct unbecoming, dishonorable discharge, forfeiture of all benefits, and a criminal record that would prevent federal employment. The words hung in the air like explosive devices, threatening to destroy everything Tiffany had accomplished during the crisis. Federal agents who had witnessed her tactical competence were now confronting evidence that she was officially considered a disgraced veteran with a criminal conviction. "Commander, there's additional information in the classified section of her file." Agent Stone's voice carried the weight of someone accessing information that would reshape the entire situation. The charges against Staff Sergeant Rodriguez were overturned in 2020 following the confession of Captain Derek Morrison, who admitted to selling intelligence to Taliban forces and framing Rodriguez to cover his own treason. The silence that followed was broken only by the distant sound of federal tactical teams securing the building and emergency medical personnel treating rescued hostages. The revelation that Tiffany had been falsely accused and subsequently exonerated transformed her from a disgraced veteran hiding from justice to a decorated soldier who had been betrayed by corrupt officers. Commander Martinez closed the tablet and studied Tiffany with new understanding. "Miss Rodriguez, why didn't you reveal your true identity when you first contacted Agent Chun? Your military record and subsequent exoneration would have provided credibility that could have enhanced our tactical coordination." The question touched the heart of 10 years of careful anonymity and the fear that had driven Tiffany to hide her military service even after official vindication. "Commander, the exoneration was classified and never made public. As far as most federal agencies knew, I remained a convicted veteran with a dishonorable discharge. Revealing my identity could have compromised the rescue operation if you had decided I was unreliable." Agent Chun stepped forward with the expression of someone who had spent hours coordinating with her during the crisis. "Ms. Rodriguez, your tactical intelligence and coordination were crucial to the success of this operation. Without your guidance, we would have been conducting a blind assault against professional terrorists with explosive devices and multiple hostage locations." The weight of what she had accomplished began to settle over the assembled federal agents. A decorated veteran, hiding her identity for 10 years due to false accusations, had single-handedly prevented a catastrophic terrorist attack while coordinating the rescue of 19 innocent hostages. "Commander Martinez, what happens now?" Tiffany asked, her voice carrying the uncertainty of someone whose carefully constructed civilian life had been completely exposed. "Now, Ms. Rodriguez, you're going to be debriefed by every federal agency that was involved in today's operation. The FBI, ATF, CIA, and probably several others who will want to understand how a former Ranger ended up working custodial shifts while possessing intimate knowledge of federal investigations. She paused, choosing her words carefully. But first, you're going to receive the recognition that should have come 10 years ago. Today's operation saved lives, protected national security, and demonstrated exactly the kind of competence and courage that the military should be honoring, not hiding. As federal investigators began the complex process of documenting the crime scene and analyzing the terrorist operation, Tiffany understood that her decade of anonymity was ending in the most public way possible. But for the first time since her court-martial, she felt the satisfaction that came from using her skills to protect innocent people rather than hiding them. To preserve her own safety, the building around them buzzed with post-operation activity. As federal agencies coordinated to understand how 8 professional terrorists had nearly succeeded in stealing classified intelligence and murdering dozens of federal employees. But at the center of it all stood a former custodial worker whose hidden military expertise had prevented a national security disaster. Staff Sergeant Tiffany Rodriguez had emerged from the shadows, and the woman who stepped forward would have to navigate a future shaped by truth rather than deception. 6 months after the Mountain Ridge federal building crisis, Tiffany Rodriguez stood in the Pentagon briefing room where her military career had effectively ended 10 years earlier. But this time, she wore the dress blue uniform of a newly promoted master sergeant, her chest bearing decorations that included the Medal of Honor for her actions during the terrorist attack. The ceremony had drawn military leadership from across the special operations community, federal law enforcement officials who had witnessed her tactical expertise firsthand, and most importantly, the 19 federal employees whose lives she had saved through her willingness to abandon 10 years of carefully maintained anonymity. General Patricia Hayes, the first female commander of Special Operations Command, stepped to the podium with the bearing of someone who had spent 30 years breaking barriers in military service. Ladies and gentlemen, we gather today not just to honor exceptional courage, but to acknowledge a fundamental failure in our military justice system that allowed a decorated veteran to suffer 10 years of exile for crimes she never committed. The words carried weight that extended far beyond individual recognition. The Mountain Ridge incident had triggered the most comprehensive review of military court-martial procedures in decades, revealing systematic problems that had allowed corrupt officers to destroy innocent careers while protecting their own criminal activities. Master Sergeant Rodriguez represents both the best of our military values and the worst of our institutional failures. Her courage during the terrorist attack saved innocent lives and protected national security. But her treatment following false accusations represents a betrayal of the trust that every service member places in their chain of command. Tiffany listened to the ceremony with mixed emotions. The public vindication was satisfying, but it couldn't restore the 10 years she had lost or resurrect the relationships that had been destroyed by her forced exile. Some victories came too late to heal all the wounds they were meant to address. Agent Chun, now promoted to section chief following his coordination during the crisis, approached the podium to provide testimony about her tactical contributions. Master Sergeant Rodriguez demonstrated capabilities that saved not just the hostages in that building, but protected classified intelligence that could have compromised ongoing operations for years. He paused, consulting notes that captured the technical details of her intervention. Her knowledge of building systems, tactical awareness, and ability to coordinate with federal law enforcement under extreme pressure represented exactly the kind of expertise that our agencies need to combat evolving terrorist threats. The presentation continued with detailed analysis of the terrorist operation that had nearly succeeded in stealing classified intelligence while murdering federal employees. 8 professional operatives with international connections, sophisticated equipment, and operational planning that had taken months to coordinate. Their failure had been attributed primarily to the intervention of someone they never suspected existed, Commander Martinez, now Deputy Assistant Director of the FBI's Critical Incident Response Group, provided the most significant revelation of the entire ceremony. The Mountain Ridge attack was part of a larger operation targeting federal buildings in 6 major cities. Master Sergeant Rodriguez's tactical intervention not only saved lives in Denver, but provided intelligence that allowed us to prevent similar attacks in Chicago, Atlanta, Phoenix, Seattle, and Boston. The scope of what had been prevented sent murmurs through the assembled audience. Coordinated terrorist attacks on federal facilities across the country, designed to steal classified intelligence while demonstrating the vulnerability of American government installations. The failure of the Denver operation had triggered security alerts that disrupted the entire network. Without her willingness to abandon her civilian cover and engage hostile forces, we could have been looking at the largest terrorist attack on American soil since September 11th. As the ceremony continued, Tiffany reflected on the journey that had brought her from a disgraced veteran, hiding in custodial coveralls, to a decorated master sergeant, receiving the nation's highest military honor. The recognition was gratifying, but the real satisfaction came from something simpler: the knowledge that her skills had been used to protect innocent people rather than hidden to preserve her own safety. The Medal of Honor citation, read by General Hayes, captured the tactical details of her intervention while acknowledging the broader significance of her courage. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of her life above and beyond the call of duty, while serving as a civilian employee during a terrorist attack on the Mountain Ridge Federal Building. The words that followed documented her systematic neutralization of the intelligence-gathering operation, her coordination with federal tactical teams, and her willingness to expose her hidden identity to prevent catastrophic loss of life. End quote. Classified information. But the most meaningful recognition came from an unexpected source. Maria Santos, her former custodial supervisor, had been invited to provide testimony about the woman she had known as Tiffany Alvarez for 3 years. "I worked alongside someone I thought was a quiet custodial worker who took pride in her job and treated everyone with respect," Maria said, her voice carrying the wonder of someone whose assumptions had been completely overturned. "What I learned is that heroes don't always announce themselves. Sometimes they're the people working night shifts, cleaning offices, and waiting for the moment when their skills are needed to save lives." The ceremony concluded with an announcement that would shape the next phase of Tiffany's career. General Hayes revealed the establishment of a new joint military federal law enforcement training program, designed to improve coordination between special operations personnel and civilian agencies during domestic crisis situations. Master Sergeant Rodriguez will serve as the program's first director, using her unique experience to train both military and federal personnel in the kind of integrated tactical operations that proved so effective during the Mountain Ridge incident. The position represented recognition that extended beyond individual heroism to institutional change. The military and federal law enforcement communities had learned valuable lessons about the importance of flexible thinking, unconventional tactics, and the need to recognize expertise regardless of its source. As the ceremony ended and guests began the traditional reception, Tiffany was approached by someone she hadn't expected to see. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Bennett, now a full colonel, serving as Deputy Commander of Special Operations Command, had traveled from her assignment in Germany specifically to attend the ceremony. "Tiffany, I owe you an apology that's 10 years overdue," Bennett said, her voice carrying the weight of command decisions that had shaped multiple careers. "I should have fought harder against the corruption that destroyed your first military career. I should have recognized what Derek Morrison was doing and protected the soldiers under my command." The conversation that followed provided closure that formal ceremonies couldn't deliver. Bennett explained how Morrison's confession had triggered investigations that revealed corruption extending throughout multiple levels of military command. Officers who had participated in the frame-up faced court-martial proceedings, while those who had looked the other way were forced into early retirement. Your case became the catalyst for changes that have prevented similar injustices. The military justice system has been reformed to include independent oversight and protection for personnel reporting misconduct. As the reception continued, Tiffany found herself surrounded by people whose lives had been directly impacted by her intervention. Federal employees who had been hostages, tactical team members who had coordinated the rescue operation, and intelligence analysts who understood the national security implications of preventing classified information theft. But the most meaningful conversation came with Agent Rachel Stone, who had become a close friend during the months of investigation and debriefing that followed the crisis. Tiffany, you've spent 10 years hiding your capabilities to protect yourself from injustice. What are you going to do now that the world knows who you really are? The question touched the heart of everything that had changed since that morning, when she had reluctantly picked up a phone to report suspicious activity. The woman who had hidden in custodial coveralls was gone forever, replaced by someone who had chosen duty over safety and truth over anonymity. I'm going to do what I should have been doing for the past 10 years, Tiffany replied, looking around the room filled with people whose lives had intersected with hers through crisis and courage. I'm going to use my skills to train others, protect innocent people, and make sure that the next person who faces impossible odds has better support than I did. The Medal of Honor ceremony marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Staff Sergeant Tiffany Rodriguez had emerged from the shadows to become Master Sergeant Tiffany Rodriguez. But more importantly, she had learned that true victory wasn't about personal vindication. It was about using whatever talents you possessed to serve something larger than yourself. Outside the Pentagon, the sun set over the Potomac River, casting long shadows that reminded her of the decade she had spent hidden from view. But those shadows no longer represented hiding places where she could avoid responsibility. They represented the quiet spaces where real heroes prepared for the moments when courage would be needed to protect innocent lives. The ghost in custodial coveralls was gone forever, replaced by a woman who understood that the greatest victory wasn't in proving others wrong, but in staying true to the values that defined her character when no one was watching. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.